Hello.
We're group 4. This is post 4 discussion. Should we go around and say what letters we all are?
Names and letters.
Yeah.
I'm Stephanie and I have B.
I'm Jen, I have C.
Julianne, I have A.
I'm Megan. I have E.
I'm JD and I have D.
I'm Stephanie and I have A. And as you can tell, we have JD on Skype today, which works great.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Is her volume all the way up?
Right?
And I'm using my phone for my discussion because that's my laptop over there. So I'm not texting. Just a heads up.
Okay.
Oh, we can see time. We'll be okay.
That's what we're going to do.
Maybe someone start a timer.
So yeah, we're just catching up and getting ready to prepare now. And we started the timer. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Should we start with the first article? Suarez.
Academic engagement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
well, it was an interesting article.
Yeah. Well, so the
Article.
first question was how do the statistics on the growth of Latino population affect the way we might teach and utilize community partnerships with this growing population?
I mean,
Was anyone else blown away by the statistics of how much the population is growing?
Oh, yeah, that was
Yes.
massive.
It's huge.
Like,
I'm
didn't
like, fascination.
they say about, like, to 100, it would be, like, 33% of the American population?
Yeah.
it was
Insane.
something.
At least that, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That was like, what?
So how is that going to affect how we're going to teach?
I think just like since there is so many other people or like more Latinos coming in, I think just that means that we have to be more prepared than we are right now, and that the teachers who aren't taking ELL classes will have to like maybe even go back to school or like have resources to help them to prepare for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we might even like already within just being this class and none of us are really teachers, like might already be more prepared than some teachers who are already in schools.
I'm kind of wondering like what those teachers in schools have been doing, like how they got, how they found themselves placed in those schools, and if they actually have had any resources available to them.
I know a
in
lot of,
teaching.
yeah, I know a lot of it is, or at least some of it, is teachers, they get like government subsidies sometimes to go teach in places where other teachers don't necessarily like choose to go. So it helps pay off some of their student loans, and they're placed there for like a certain number of years. So they might not have any special training, or they might have less than another person, but they're just put there because nobody else chooses to be there.
It would be interesting to like know that percentage of what teachers actually going to these schools prepared, or at least somewhat prepared.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even if they know about these statistics, like I just wonder if there's some teachers who like just go to school and like do their like schoolwork for their students, but like if they do any outside research or like listen to the news about like what's going on in schools at all.
I mean, there are teachers who go into the profession without really a passion for the profession.
Right. Yeah.
So there are those teachers.
Mm-hmm.
But even thinking about the ones that are passionate about it and want to reach every student, but aren't prepared to reach like the students that are coming in so rapidly. I don't know, it would be a very interesting thing to even interview some teachers and know like how prepared they were, how are they becoming prepared now, what's the best route, like what's been the most helpful. Because I think for a lot of teachers that are passionate about it, it's probably been a lot of learn as you go and find your own resources with how schools are funded.
Yeah.
Right. And I like how we're doing our community asset project, because it's just like opening my eyes to all the different communities that are here. And I just know, I wonder how many teachers go out of their way to kind of research the different communities in our area.
Right, yeah. And like I've just heard that like before you go and try and get a teaching job, like what really like wows them is if you like know about, didn't she tell us that?
Yeah.
Like if you know about the community, and so like it's just interesting, especially because communities change so often. Like, they're always really fluid, and I'm reading about that right now. But it's just, if you research it once before you start the job, and then you don't for the next 30 years, like, you might miss out on a lot of, like, resources and stuff.
It's just interesting because I think this is one of the first classes I've taken where, I mean, I've heard about it in other coaching classes, but this is the first class that I've taken that you've actually like look in depth at community asset mapping. But it does seem like it would be helpful, even not including like our studies and ELL students, that you would just want that. I mean, in any classroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hope that they use it more in like other classes. That'd be cool if you could extend it in that way.
Yeah.
Just need to see.
Why are we looking at assets rather than deficits?
Well, I think if we focus too much on deficits, I know the article stated that it just sets up students for failure because they are looking at weaknesses rather than strengths.
Yeah.
So was that article, I get confused between the two articles that we read. Was that the one that we also looked at the mirroring, or was it the other article?
I think it was the first article.
First,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Either way. But yeah, that definitely like the assets versus deficits definitely tied into the mirroring, I thought, with trying to view yourself and like your community and your culture in a more positive light. By using assets instead of deficits builds a lot of self-confidence. Like those, the things we had to watch at the end, the little clips. Those kids, I mean, even over the course of just that class, like, and the professor said they just came like right out of their shells and like we're a lot more comfortable in this setting and just more self-confident.
Just because they are feeling valued, like what I'm bringing to the classroom is something that this classroom, I mean, needs. It's what helps complete our community there. So
I think you worded that really well, that the students feel valued. I know even in my own experience, when I was a part of a lesson that really, when I felt empowered, I did better in school and like in different projects. And I think that was a big thing for those students, that for the first time maybe like their culture, they were being really connected and empowered and valued in what they were, where they came from. And it clearly made them excited to come home and like tell their parents everything that they're learning and things like that.
Oh gosh, sorry.
I don't know, just like remembering my own experiences. Like there was one class that it could have been interesting. It was a chemistry class, but my teacher just she was just so focused on her own subject that she didn't know her students. So I mean, I even had, it was great. My mom had to email her to ask her just like as well, because I was asking for help but I wasn't getting anything. And so my mom like emailed just to say like, okay, this is my daughter's background. She's never had chemistry class before. And the teacher emailed back just saying like, well, you know, if Sonia, which is my mom's name, if Sonia does this, da-da-da-da-da, in the classroom, then it'll be fine. It's like, you don't even know who you're talking about. You don't know your students at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be informed about your students.
Yeah.
Your
Yes.
community.
Yeah, definitely. I liked the part about assets mapping that talked about not reaching out to just the students, but also the students' families.
Oh, yeah.
Because getting the student involved alone is going to be harder and often like not as effective as like reaching out to their family, so that they connect and there's still these school connections going when they go home. Like if the parents know what's going on, like maybe they can talk about it a little bit more, or even just like ask like, oh yeah, you're in that chemistry class with the so-and-so professor that I talked to.
Right.
Like, how is that?
Yeah.
Like even just like awkward starting out like that. We've all had awkward conversations like that with our parents.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like one thing that was really cool that connects with that is when in the videos that we watched, how the girl was like, I'm reading this book, and then like what was it, the road to It was weird. It was in the video, but she was like, I was reading this book to my parents. Were like, oh, we want to read it as well.
Right.
And like, obviously, not every single parent is that way and like is that involved. But like, some parents might want to be, but don't know how. And so like, just talking to parents and like giving them options. Like, if you want, like, I'll give you an extra worksheet that you can like work with your students, and just like giving them like resources to help them, I guess.
I think also, especially with like these parents, they maybe don't feel like they're doing enough as parents. So it's definitely like involving them in the child's schoolwork, like gives them something to like do at home and like help out with their student, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, just like not being isolated from that part of their life.
Yeah,
Like they want to be a part of it. They just might not know how.
Like we even talked about how the parents could be like the positive mirroring in that child's like identity and like pursuit of self, that they're the ones that do help support their students, even if they may not have had the same background that their students are getting and creating right now. They're still like one of the main supporters of a child.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and from what we've read, most of these parents, like of the ELL students that we have, they have a high emphasis on their children succeeding in academics. They think that if their children succeed in their education, they'll have the opportunities that they came here to find. You know?
Yeah. That's why they're here.
Yeah.
Would you like to do the
Jigsaw
section?
Yeah.
Sure. Do you have comments instead?
You and I both today, always. We'll just have like excess information. We can just do like A, B, C, like in order almost.
Yeah.
So for A, like the first thing it asked us to do was to find significant findings. And so I just wrote down like several like statistics which were crazy. So one that was really shocking was that students from ages 16 to 24, if they were born outside of America, then 44.2% of them, like of the Hispanics, will drop out of high school. And so like that's almost half, which is just crazy. And then it's good that it says the percentages, they increase dramatically if like the students were born in America. And so like that's kind of good, but then it's also like still not as good because I'm sure it's not great.
Yeah, because then it also talked about like the percentage of like how the ones that don't finish high school, they don't like, and the reasons behind it, and how they don't get that step up on their parents that their parents wish they were aiming for. Was all my articles are confused. Is this the one with undocumented youth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah. About how like knowing that or finding that out makes them drop out, and then like that cycle just repeats,
Yeah.
and it's like a negative feedback loop.
Yeah, and I know some of them find like a community with like a gang and can end up with,
Yeah, that mirroring. The society says, yeah, like you shouldn't be here, and so they say, well, like suck it, I'm here. Like look at me.
Mhm.
Like I can see easily how like I could do that. Like if somebody told me like that I wasn't allowed to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no.
Another crazy one was that 77% of white students earned, like, pretty much passed this test. It says that they earned competency determination. It was, like, in the Massachusetts testing, just, like, an overall test, like, with all their scores combined with, like, math and reading and writing. But then only 29% of Hispanic students reached that level. And so it's just alarming, and it's crazy that just because they're Hispanic, like, that is happening.
Yeah, resources available. And I think it was another article, and one of you wrote it down that I think it was in 6th grade that's when the rates of dropout just like doubled and chances increased, which is just, I mean, that's 12-year-olds. That's
crazy.
to think about. And I mean, I know that like I'm an elementary education person, so I mean, my main domain will be like kindergarten to 8th grade, but it's just so weird that it's even within that age grouping that, I mean, chances are still pretty high.
Right.
Well, how could we make a test more inclusive for everyone, but still like see where they're at. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I'm taking a French class right now, and they were talking about how in Quebec, because that French is another language, is an official language there, that in some of the universities, even though maybe the testing is released in English, you can request, and they have an obligation to give you a translator for those tests,
Okay.
so that everything would be, tailored for the student. But again, I don't know how much that costs to provide that translator there.
Right, but if it's like
17% of the national body, like, it seems like it'd be worth that.
no, yeah, 29%.
Oh, 29, yeah.
But still, yeah, I was gonna say like, I think it would cost less to provide that than have to have students constantly repeating grades and stuff. And so I feel like, I don't know, it would like weigh out for the favor of the schools.
In the stats in the beginning, didn't it say that, was it like 17% was the current Hispanic population?
I think something like that.
Yeah, like
In
that's like a fifth.
Or in 2020,
Yeah,
17% of the U.S. population will be of Latino origin, and 33.3% by 2100.
yeah. So 4 years from now, like a fifth of the United States. Like I feel like it's definitely like,
Portion.
Right.
yeah, maybe we should offer in like Spanish.
And I'm sure there's plenty of qualified teachers that can speak different languages to administer those
Right.
tests too.
Even just the Spanish teachers at the high school. Like my school had 3.
Yeah, that's true.
That's 3 classrooms where you can have a Spanish translator.
Well, one of our money questions could be like, what is going on? Like, what are current things like happening for students during like tests like that? Like,
What are current actions or
right.
processes being considered?
Yeah, like
Or being
aids.
enacted.
Yeah, like what's like aiding them to do better, I guess.
Or is there
Right. Yeah.
is anything?
Is anything happening? Is there ever going to be anything going on
Just for tests.
for like
Or-
like state tests and stuff like that? Because I think that's what Massachusetts. That's what they were talking about was like their state testing. It was Massachusetts and Texas that I was
Between
talking
10th
about.
and 12th grade. But, yeah.
Right, but like nationally, there's tests for every state, right? It's like a requirement.
Right.
School
Mm-hmm.
standardized testing. So there should, hopefully there would be some sort of policy in play or something happening to change those statistics.
Yeah.
Not sidetracked, but I don't have the actual data here, but one thing that I thought was interesting about the article was how they talked about, or they had research that indicated the immigrant youth are typically healthier than their non-immigrant counterparts, and that the more they become Americanized or the longer they stay in the U.S., the more likely they are to engage in risky behaviors.
Yes, and the less healthy they are,
Yeah.
which is like crazy to
How
me.
nuts was that?
Like I just didn't even like know how those are correlated.
That was physical health, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Physical health,
Like how is physical health correlated
but
with
also like mental
Mental
health
health.
and not
Did it-
engaging in risky behaviors.
Okay, yeah.
both?
It was just, I don't know, it seemed kind of counterintuitive in that, like, they come to the U.S. because they think there are more opportunities here, and there are more resources and areas of support, but then they found research that it's like, nope, it's the other way.
Yeah, which is so, like you'd think that you'd be like, okay, they're coming to America to like get health and like get benefits and all this stuff. Exactly what you're saying. And yeah, I didn't really go into like how those are correlated. It just like kind of like gave us that and then just like moved on.
Well, when you think about like if some of those families are living in poverty, I think that that'll make a difference on their physical and mental health. And like like in the communities, are they surrounded by gangs? Like what sort of role models do they have in their communities? I think that all plays a part. And it's interesting, like especially reading about like the students. I don't know if it was in my reading this week or last week, but the students that I lost my train of thought. Never mind. I had a point there.
Does it have to do with like health or anything?
Huh?
Like health or gangs or poverty?
Oh, I found it. Okay, so the students that, like, because I read a bit about the unauthorized status youth, like, those students suffer a lot of different kind of physical and emotional negative factors and implications of that, and they kind of float between two cultures. Like, it's very important, as like the sociologist studies said, for a student to know their identity in order to be like a positive member of society. I think it plays a big role in their health. And the more Americanized they are and the more exposed they are to different things that aren't them, I think it makes a difference. Does that make any sense how I'm wording that?
Yeah, that makes sense to us. Because it is such, really just a mix of two, different things being told to you, like where maybe you're coming to the U.S. and you do have your whole family background and all these beliefs and values that were important in whatever country you're coming from, but then you're put into this new culture and it's culture shock because then you have this completely different thing being told to you and all this, just, all these other values that are being provided or forced upon you. Hopefully not forced upon you, but
which connects to that, like, bicultural versus the transcultural, like, the difference between the two. Whereas the bicultural was, like, I have two cultures and they're completely separate, and when I go into one, I'm not comfortable showing parts of me that are a part of the other culture. Other people don't accept it. I don't feel like it's accepted, like, so I keep them completely separate. Whereas the transcultural, and I talked a little bit about this in the very first video that we watched, were the students that were like, yeah, like, no, like, I can do this. I can be a part of both at the same time. Which, I mean,
but it's, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. And also, the video you were talking about talked about how some students, they don't know where home is because they grew up in one place, but they don't sound or associate themselves with that country. And then when they're in, like, for the United States, if they grew up here, but they're like Asian, I don't know, or a different culture, everyone's just like, you don't look like American,
Yeah.
And then they just can't associate with either culture because they're, I don't know.
definitely.
That kind of reminds me of the category, because there was we had to do unauthorized, like, defining different types of documentation status, and so unauthorized mixed status and interrupted rites of passage. And then, so that kind of reminds me of the interrupted rites of passage. This one's, like, a little bit more drastic because it's, like, they're actually in the in-between, so they are illegal in America.
or at least like a majority.
Right, yeah. But they don't consider themselves, like, Mexico's their home or America's their home, so they kind of just feel like in the, like, in-between state. And so that is kind of like that one, too.
I just thought this was all interesting because, I'm a third culture kid because I was born in Renton, but I only lived there 2 years and then I moved overseas for 14 years. So, so I'm at the stage where I don't have home. Like, I just don't have a place that I can call it that. But then it was interesting to read, like, the interrupted rites of passage because it was like, wait, this kind of sounds like me, but I have.
But you're
authorized
legal,
status.
obviously.
I'm a U.S. citizen, but it was just interesting to have that, like, applied where it's like, no, there's two or multiple cultures being jumbled at you.
Wait, can we ask who is talking?
Oh, Julianne.
Okay. And you lived where for 14 years?
I lived, a couple countries: Japan, Belgium, France, China, and I moved to Issaquah right before my junior year of high school.
Oh, wow.
This is only my 5th year in the States.
Were you was it military?
My dad works for Boeing.
Oh, okay.
Where did you live?
I was born in Washington, and then I moved to Turkey for 2 years, and then Guam for 2 years, and then Bahrain for 2 years, and then Germany for 2 years, and then back here. So not 14 years, but like 8 or 10.
But you still get the whole.
Yeah. Yeah, so I feel the same way. They're like, where are you from? And I'm like, I don't know where I'm from.
I just know like wherever I graduated from high school.
Yeah, I say that too.
Is your dad? Are
military. Both my parents are military.
Do you guys hate that question?
Well, I just don't know how to answer it.
Yeah.
I just feel like stupid sometimes because I like hesitate, and they're like, "Do you not know where you're
Yeah.
from?" And I'm like,
Just like,
um.
do I want to give you the short answer
Right.
or the long answer?
I usually just say like, "Oh, well, I was like born in Washington, but then I moved around a lot, and then I went to high school in Puyallup."
So,
Yeah,
That's
just a short one.
exactly.
So can I ask you both what your experience was like in school in those different countries? Like, has any of the CLL stuff that we're learning about now have any correlation with anything of your schooling?
I mean, I never just kind of ended applying back to here. You know how in the U.S. you do learn about like American history and you learn about U.S. culture, but
Yeah.
I never did any of that overseas. So moving here was complete culture shock, just because I had studied whatever culture I was in. Like in China, we talked about China. In France, it was French stuff. But yeah, moving to the U.S. was culture shock as well.
Yeah.
So.
I remember like one thing that really stuck out to me was in high school we had to take a state map test and I failed it like 5 times and I just couldn't get it down. Like they were just like, how do you not know where the states are? And I'm like, I've never looked at a state map like in my life. Like it's just not something that was relevant to me ever because I didn't care and I didn't know and I wasn't taught that in other schools. And so it was just interesting, like being like, I still struggle with it today.
That's hard enough. Like having like your childhood years, like growing up in the U.S. and looking at the state map, it's hard enough. I can't imagine like,
Yeah.
having to like just expect somebody else to know where all the states are. There's 50 of those suckers.
Yeah.
And they all sound similar, like Minnesota, Massachusetts, Maine, like Mississippi. Like what?
On the East Coast, there's like these tiny little states.
Yeah.
What goes
Yeah.
there?
My friends like still try to quiz me on them. It's kind of fun.
So did you guys go to international schools?
I went to international schools. I did have to go to one bilingual school, just because I wasn't allowed to because I had to move halfway through the year at one point. So the international school wouldn't let my brother and I in, so we went to a bilingual French and English school. But in Japan, I had to go to Japanese yochien, because same thing, they wouldn't let me start because I was too young. So.
And I went to school in base. I just went to military school. And so everything we learned was different, but everyone was traveling. And so, like, everyone was only there for 2 years. So you just, like, want to make friends. You just, like, go to class. And, like, at recess, I feel like you'd maybe play with people, but I just was never, like, interested in making friends ever because I was like, I'm not going to, like, be friends with you because I'm not going to see you in 2 years. And, like, I'm young, so, like, I'm not going to make those, like, strong connections at that age because you don't, like, call your friends when you're 12 and, like, sit and talk about your life and, like, let's catch up kind of thing. And
I wonder if that's how some of the Hispanics feel, knowing that, like, no, like, my parents might be deported, like, and if they do, I'm going to go back with them, so why make friends?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, there is a likelihood that you might, I mean, you could see those people again, but there is a great likelihood that, no, I'm probably not going to see you again in, you know, at least 20 years-ish,
Right.
just depending, so
Yeah.
I think it's still, like, worthwhile to actually invest in those, but it's, I mean, it is still really hard. That's just part of life at that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anyone else find anything, like, interesting in their jigsaws that they want to talk about at all?
Well, I did the Plyler versus Doe, the U.S. Supreme Court case that allows undocumented children access to public education.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, which is really cool. But I heard someone in one of my classes say, well, why should we let these students in our classrooms if their parents aren't paying their taxes or paying taxes? I was like, okay. But it's like the question we had last session. Like, I wanted to be respectful, but still that's not true.
Yeah.
Because there's sales tax, there's other taxes. They don't have the right to buy a house because they're not
They might be
documented.
homeless. Yeah.
Right, and they're living in poverty. It's not like they have a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, that was an interesting comment.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
It's definitely a biased comment, but I mean, it's not completely unfounded either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely kind of bigoted.
But it's not completely unfounded. I mean, there's arguments for both sides. but still, like, why? How can you like look at this kid and say like, no, like we have this free school that you're not allowed to go to. So,
Exactly.
Peace. What?
They're kids.
Yeah. They don't really have control over like what's going on, like with their parents and taxes, kind of thing. I don't know.
Or their situation.
Right.
Parents might be, coming over here to get work.
Yeah, this country was founded on opportunity.
What you said, it said, it's unfair punishment, like, to keep children from that because that's their parents' actions. Right? It's not necessarily them.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Oh, and yours was the one I heard that said the dropout rate after 6th grade is twice the national average, and typically they only reach 8th grade.
That's crazy.
Oh man, 8th grade is nothing.
Right.
What
What do
was
you know in 8th grade?
there was like a percentage, I can't remember what it was, but it was saying how many students there are that are don't have authorization. I don't know how many, but it was like insane. Like there was like, or not that are in school, but like in America, there's like so many. Like I want to say it was almost 1 million. Like
Yeah,
I don't remember where
reading
that was,
too.
but like I remember just reading that statistics was crazy.
Like if they weren't being granted those rights to education, what would you want those kids to be doing?
Just hanging out and like being in gangs and like going through violence and stuff.
Well, the article also talked about the kids working with their parents and most of it's in agriculture or fishing, and they're working in these fields and getting sprayed with pesticides, and of course that's detrimental to their health.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the
benefits are good wages.
Americanized.
That's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That statistic might have been in my part of the Jigsaw discussion. I talked about, let's see, how might one explain to a teacher, peer, or interested party about the implications of unauthorized status, and how would you summarize the discussion at the end? So I read the discussion at the end of the article, and it said that, there are millions of students that have unauthorized status or that are affected by it, and 1 to 2 students in every American classroom are touched in some way by unauthorized status, which is insane.
Yeah.
And it's growing. I think, let's see, the number was, there are currently around 5.5 million children and adolescents growing up in the shadow of unauthorized status.
It's something to consider as we're going into our classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Just really, how are you reaching out to all the students and giving them hope,
Right.
hope, support, being also a positive mirror to them.
I know a lot of parents are so afraid of being deported that they step away from being engaged with you. So it's important to find a way to let them know that we're not going to report them or anything. We're just here to help.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're even allowed to ask them
No.
to produce
Right. Like, are you
papers
legal?
or something.
No. Yeah, that's like not appropriate.
Yeah, it's illegal that was part of my article, to ask for like social security numbers or, I don't know, there are like 3 things now I'm forgetting. It's like the chill factors to instill fear. So that.
And then I don't know if it was in like the big part or like our Jigsaw, but when it was talking about how some students like get to the end of high school, but then they find out they can't even go to college because they don't have a.
Yeah.
It's like they worked so hard to like get to this spot, and then they like go to apply. Yeah, exactly. And then they just find out like, oh, like you're not authorized to even go to college, and it's just like, then what? Like, it's just crazy that is a thing that happens. Like we all applied to college and got in, and we're just like here. Not like can't speak for everyone, but I feel like a lot of people take it for granted, and they're just like, I got into college. Like it's a privilege that we even got to apply to college, and like some students don't even have that like going for them.
It really is like one thing to talk about those opportunities, but another to actually have them enacted. So,
But if they're documented in their native country, to get into the college? I guess I don't.
Maybe.
I was, because I saw your question and I was looking at that.
Yeah,
So I
that
think, though, that it looked like you would need one possibly for, I don't know if this technically qualifies as work, or at least you'd be a temporary resident in a way.
Like a student visa.
Because, like, what were you asking about? Like, for example, I don't know if international students here, if they have to get, like, a temporary visa or something to show that, yeah, I am in the U.S.
Yeah, you have a student visa.
Yeah, working. So I guess in that way you would need a social security number.
Yeah. And
This
then
is a silly question, but did you all notice in the article, I think there's a part in this week's article about parents like that are so afraid of being deported or because they're undocumented giving birth in their home.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
It was also in last week's article as well.
Was that in last week's? Either way, this might be a stupid question, I just have no idea, but how do those children receive, like, their social security number or any sort of documentation that they are living people?
Because if you have a home birth, even if you have a home birth, and I know people who have done it by choice, or you get a midwife and whatever, you still have to get it documented. That midwife is responsible for documenting it. But if you don't have like a registered midwife or anything, then there's nobody there certified to document it.
and that just
So
becomes
just-
an unauthorized
Yeah.
immigrant, and then they're illegal.
And then, can those students still go to school?
Yes,
Yeah,
but they can't go to college.
But yeah, there's no documentation for them having been born in the U.S.
Oh.
I didn't really think about
Because a
that.
child
yeah.
born in the U.S. does have U.S. citizenship,
But they have
but
to
not if it's not documented.
Right. Which is sad because it's like if that parent would have just taken them,
Mhm.
like they could, but they're like obviously in fear that
Because
you found out because they'd obviously want the parents' information and stuff like that, and then if they don't give them that, then they'd be deported.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because don't you need, like, how do you even register for kindergarten when you start school if there's no, like, documentation of you?
Well, I guess
Don't you?
because they can't ask you about, they can't ask you for papers or whatever.
Yeah.
How does
I
that
don't think the
affect-
high school requires your social security number.
Maybe there's like an unauthorized box check. Like I don't have anything.
I don't
It's illegal to ask that.
Yeah, I think it just
In
requires
school.
a name and somewhere to contact you, and then you just go to school. You just
That'd be a money question.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Because none of us have any kindergarten or something, so we don't know yet.
What do you like?
How do I
How does
register my
a
kindergartner
child
for school?
go to school without having any authorization and documents?
Yeah, what documents are required for public schooling, if any? Money question. But anyway, I was responsible for the mirroring part, and I actually thought it was super interesting, like the psychological aspects of like what different parts of like different people and different parts of your life are telling you affects how you see yourself. I know I've said before the different like the 4 different corners of like who you are. Like there's who others like think you are, who you think you are, like who you think others see you as, and there was like one more, but like the who you think others see you as and like the way you act because of that, like just reading the part on mirroring was like phenomenal. Like
You called it double consciousness.
that's what the author called it, the double consciousness, where like because I think that Julianne sees me in this certain way, I'm going to act that way, or I'm going to like reject that and act in this other way as a response. So those were the 2 different like responses that people had, where either like I accept that and I'm just gonna like
There's another
whatever.
word for that too. When like someone views you as something, and then like because you like know that you act that way. I don't know what it's called. But
Yeah.
same thing.
sure, but yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. I was wondering if any of you guys like had like instances where like you'd seen that happen to like other people, or where that had like happened to you, like in any like scope. Because I mean, I know it's happened to me like on small scales, but nothing on like something as large as like wow, like I'm making like this assumption about you because of your culture. Like that's never happened to me.
I don't know. I mean, I I guess it's been assumed that I might know certain things, but I don't know about like in ways I act. I have to think about that more.
Yeah, I think like one thing I feel like that came to my mind was like all my friends. I feel like I'm the only person that isn't white in my friend group, and so all my friends like don't consider me not white. Like they're like, you're white, like you're not even cultured at all. Like you seem white and you look white and you're fine. And so for me, I feel like that has pushed me away from like wanting to know anything about my culture that makes any sense. Like I'm like, oh, I'm white. Like do I even like have any culture to look at and like try and research or like think about it all? And so I feel like since my friends perceive me as like being fully white and like not being like different than them, I like don't ever think about that I am different than them. And so that's just kind of like interesting to think about.
It actually made me think because in high school I had the opposite thing. Where if I
Really?
hung out with like my Asian friends, they saw me as white. But if I hung out with like my mixture of like white friends, I was Asian.
Interesting. Okay.
Like here, a lot of my friends are white, and I'm still the Asian one, but I'm only half Asian.
Yeah.
And half mixture white. So it was just like a weird balance. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah, it kind of has to do with that. Yeah, and so like if like Hispanics, if people are like, you're white now, like you're in America, and now that you're here, like drop your culture, which is like obviously what we're teaching the opposite of right now. But if people like put that kind of like identity on them, then they might think like maybe like obviously it's not good, but maybe it could have some positive benefit to them thinking like, okay, I'm here now, like I need to like, which is like bad. I know that's bad, but it's just something to think about, and like maybe, I don't know. Just weird.
Yeah, which runs back to like letting your students know that like their culture is okay and it's great and it's
important.
a part of them. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that you care that they are who they are.
yeah. Like you want to encourage them to explore that and like be like informed on like where they came from, because that's important.
Yeah, like if Alfred over there has to miss class for some reason, he says, "Oh yeah, I'm missing class because of blah blah blah." You're like, "Oh wow, like I've never heard of that holiday. Do you want to teach us about it?"
Mm-hmm.
Like really briefly before you go. Like even something as simple as that. Like, hey,
Yeah,
that's really cool.
like making them feel empowered about it.
Yeah.
I think also with that, like talking to the parents and telling them that like what they have to say to their kids is important. Like having them share more about their culture at home.
Yeah,
We'll just like bring it back to the classroom.
that's good. Yeah.
Rope in the parents. Go
Do
education.
you want to talk about like the videos? Those got me fired up.
I really enjoyed those videos. Yeah.
I've seen them
Every time
before.
I watch
Yeah, every time I watch them
Yeah, I've seen
though,
them
I'm just
before,
like, it's so good.
Yeah, I'd never seen those before, and I was like, yeah, it's crazy. Good job. Those teachers.
So cool. Yeah.
It's a good documentary. Woodring does it a lot.
Yeah, I think I watched it my freshman year, like 3 years ago, in Education 109, Bill A.
Third or fourth time. But it's still really interesting just how, I mean, you could even see with the students just how engaged they felt, because it's like, okay, I can clearly see how this applies to me. And that goes back to like the whole cultural related pedagogy. And I don't know. I mean, going back to what we even said earlier, how like even the parents got involved with, oh, you're reading this book in class? I'll read it at home. We can talk about it. Just because they just created such a community and such a relationship.
I really liked the part where like the teacher was like reading I think they were reading a poem or something, but like they said in like both their native tongue and English at the same time, or like mantra after each other. Yeah, it was so cool.
Yeah, that was super cool.
And it was just cool to see like those high school students being so excited about what they were learning and like doing their homework and talking about how like they're doing better in that class than any other class and they want to perform well. And then even seeing the one student like want to introduce her teacher to her mom, like, "You want to meet my family?"
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
And just hearing at the very beginning, they really specified like this is open to all students.
Yes, and like seeing
Like anybody can be in this class.
well, and the girl that said like, oh, my parents read the same book. She was white, like, and so it's just like how the last question was like, how should we tell the legislators like what's an intelligent response? And I think we all said the same thing. Like, it's not only for like ELL or Hispanic students. Like, those classes are open to everyone. And, like, I saw several people, like, white people or, like, different cultures in that class.
Learning about their own culture isn't going to make them standoffish about being American. Like,
or racist.
Yeah, it's not going to make seriously. Like, isn't America a blend of everything? That what the goal is?
The melting pot.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the melting pot. Like,
it was just interesting because, I mean, the law that they, like, passed into place, I forgot what the exact name was, but, I mean, they made it so, you know, they don't want, you know, different ethnicities rising up against each other and, like, creating those, conflicts between them, but the fact that this class was an open class for everyone, it was just interesting.
But then again, I mean, there were like times where, you know, even after slavery was abolished, that, I mean, you know, black people were technically like, oh, like, you're allowed everywhere, but like, they weren't really.
Yeah.
It was just like, yeah, like. So, I mean, I can see how that guy might, like, try to correlate the two, but it was obvious that that wasn't the case. Like, these classes were honestly open to everybody.
Right.
I just think that, like, my last comment for that question was just that I think there's, like, this quote I feel like I've seen on, like, Facebook before, but it's, like, America, like, fears what they don't know, and so I think that for the guy that was talking, like, I think he was fearing that those students would feel empowered. And, like, anyone in, like, a state of, like, power is, like, they obviously like their power unless they're, like, not in power because they'd step down or whatever. But I just think that, like, as someone in power, you don't want other people to feel empowered because then you're threatened. And so I feel like that's one of the reasons he was like, okay, I don't want all these students to feel like they have, like, a sense of belonging because then, like, they might take over, or they might, like, there might be more, like, Hispanic kids than, like, white people, and he's white, so it's just crazy. Like, I feel like that's what I was getting from him.
I got more of, like, I don't understand, like, what you're doing here, and, like, but also, like, I'm not willing to listen to it. Like, I'm not willing to ask questions and, like, bring myself down and be like, well, teach me. Because, like, maybe, like, he felt like he was past that time in his life, or, like, oh, I don't need to learn anything anymore.
Unwilling to be wrong, or to be...
Is he, like, still... We should figure out if he's still there. Like, that's crazy. I feel like he's had to have been fired by now.
Hopefully.
Like, social justice, where is it? It's crazy.
I mean, I did some, like, extra research, so, I mean, the program has somewhat been brought back, but not to the same extent that it was before. I think they really only offered like a couple classes that, because before it talked about how it was like 40-some classes offered throughout, I think, elementary to high school, but now it's maybe more focused into one class that covers like a variety of these.
Okay.
So not as specific, but yeah, that'd be interesting to see whether that man is still in legislature,
right?
Government stuff.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really understand this position either because, I mean, from what I could see in the video, those students were clearly excelling academically through that class.
Mm-hmm.
And wouldn't you want all of your students to be excelling within a school? Like, you don't want high dropout rates in a school district. And if that's helping it, then you would think you'd support it.
Right. I guess maybe he wanted them to succeed, but in his way, or in, like, the way that I don't really know what his background is in cultural awareness and just understanding cultural heritage, and I don't know, because there are people in government who are in educational departments, but maybe they don't actually have like a strong history in that.
Right.
Well, what's a good way to help those people like learn without making them feel so? Yeah, without making them feel so. I don't want to say stupid because learning is never stupid, but making them like feel uninformed and like pessimistic to the fact that to the point that they don't want to try to learn anymore. Like, how do we reach them?
Feel like he was so, like, defensive. Like, oh my gosh, the part in the video when he was like, the chanting in the background shows they're teaching them, like, disrespectful ways. No. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, there's chanting at every rally. Like, if you were on the other side, you would also be chanting. Like, that's not. I think, like, if someone came to him and said, like, listen here, like, in a like nice and kind, loving tone. Like I just feel like he would be like unacceptant and like closed-minded to like any other view.
In the documentary, I don't remember if it was him, but they did have like a government official go into the classroom, and he sat in those classes and listened to them teach. But I don't know. I think it really does come from like your whole attitude of how you approach that. And I mean, in watching that, I don't know if you've seen that part yet, but yeah, where he's actually in the classroom watching the teachers teach and just watching the student responses back to that. I mean, they're having like a really good, engaging discussion with everybody. But
what does the guy think after he sits in the class?
Well, at one point he thought that they said something unconstitutional.
Oh gosh.
So then it just blew up in that aspect.
It's about freedom of speech.
Yeah. So it
didn't go well.
I mean, yeah, it didn't go as well as it could have been. But I think because he got stuck on that detail.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was talking about how our founding fathers, some of them were slave owners.
But it's history, like
yeah. And I forgot what
They teach that
they were
more in
talking
history
about
classes.
something else around that, and
Yay.
I think just really attitude has a lot to do with old people.
seriously, they got to come back to school. Like there's got to be like, is there a test that like as a teacher every so years you have to like brush up on your
We have to renew like teaching stuff sometimes. I think.
okay.
Yeah. Here.
Just to make sure that you are still current with like.
I'm not sure if they
Whatever
do any like new cultural awareness.
Yeah, there should be like an ELL training every
Some social justice.
3 or 4 years. Yeah.
Even just like a day, like
A
a
day,
training
yeah.
day in every year, like
Like video you have to watch.
Workshops.
yeah, workshops.
I mean, we will have workshops in the future.
Do social justice workshops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
Was there any like other things that anybody was dying to talk about or ask?
I actually really like my point from the second article. Like you talked a lot about the first one, but I got to talk about about the ecological systems on different levels. I talked about the micro, the exo, and the
I
macro.
did that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I thought it was a really good way to conceptualize like what's influencing the student. The micro, like their peers, their immediate family, their school environment, maybe activities they're in. The exo was like their parents' work factors, like their friends' other factors, like a little bit of the community, like maybe their church organization or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the macro was like media and like social norms and like stuff like that, and how all those different factors in any situation affect how a student is going to respond and think of themselves. So like an undocumented student with undocumented parents who are being deported is going to react to whatever is happening in school like a lot differently than a documented student with like a supportive church community who's white. Like they're gonna have a lot of different pressures and influences on them, and I just thought it was a really cool way to organize and sort those out, having that micro, that exo, and the macro. I just thought that.
I was really just struck by the amount of things that were around that child, like just all the different stress points that could be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Where's that come from? Gotcha. Is there any other points or questions? Did we have 3 muddy questions?
Yes.
Spend the time spent and stuff.
Yes.
You can go ahead and post them now if you want.
Yeah, I think we started a minute in with a timer, but it's gonna be around there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, JD.
Bye, JD.
But thanks for Skyping me in.
No
Yeah.
problem.
Now we know this works, so we can do it with other
Yeah,
people.
that's awesome.
Perfect.
Here, hold on. Let's just stop the video first, just in case. And then we'll
Bye.